Hello everyone, today is 19th of May, now it's 10 past 6 in the morning Moscow time. I'm Levan Gudadze and this is first part of my main news update for the day, in which I will share all the main news that are making headlines in Russian media outlets and Russian language pages on different internet platforms. Second part of the update will be available on my Patreon page for paid subscribers or supporters of the channel. So before you will finish watching or listening to this first part of the update, most likely second part already will be uploaded on my Patreon page. That's been said, let's go through some news now, and first of all, short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield. The main area of activities, of course, is still northern part of Kharkov region, where Russian armed forces conducting local-scale offensive operations to create a buffer zone. And right now, there is two main directions of the Russian offensive. Western flank of offensive is conducting operations in Liptsi area, crucial point, crucial settlement at this point of the operation, and Russian armed forces are conducting operations in the vicinity of the Liptsi, although some sources, some channels are reporting that forward units of Russian group of forces already are inside the city itself or town. When it comes to eastern flank of the Russian offensive, main direction is of course Volchansk, and according to many sources, Russian armed forces continue their advances in the northern part of this city, which is divided by Volcha River. And despite deployment of significant number of reinforcements, Kiev regime is unable to hold on to its positions in the city. And by the way, yesterday late evening, reports came in that Russian forces cross this Volcha River and start conducting military operations on the southern part of the city, also on the southern western part of the city. Simultaneously, I reported yesterday that, if you remember, that Russian forces established control over the Zibina settlement on the eastern side of Volchansk. And if information will be confirmed, that definitely means that Russian forces are preparing ground to conduct offensive operations towards Volchansk from the eastern side, also on the southern part of from the southern bank of this Volcha River. So situation for Kiev regime garrison in Volchansk definitely is becoming more and more difficult as time goes by on daily basis. And also yesterday, number of Russian sources reported that, including defense ministry, that Russian armed forces established control over the Starit settlement. This settlement here on the western side of Volchansk, and this is also important because by establishing control over the Staritsa, Russian forces basically were able to cut main supply and support line of the Kiev regime forces in Volchansk. So that will of course make situation for Kiev regime even more difficult in Volchansk direction. This is it when it comes to Kharkov direction. In other sectors of the front line, according to number of reports, Russian forces in Kupiansk sector of the front start offensive operations in Beristovo settlement, towards the Beristovo settlement, and forward units of Russian armed forces already are, according to some reports, inside the Beristovo and managed to establish control over the at least a third of this settlement. Significant development, of course, on Kupiansk direction. Also, by the way, more and more sources are reporting about Russian progress in the Belogorovka area, which is Seversk direction, of course. Belogorovka was disputed and still are disputed between the sides. And operations, clashes in this area was taking place for many months. And in last few days, Russian forces managed to achieve breakthrough in this direction. And some sources are reporting now that Russian units already are inside Belogorovka. If information will be confirmed, then most likely it's only a matter of days before Belogorovka will become under full Russian control. Maybe Russian Defense Ministry will share with public information about liberating Belogorovka even before end of next week. And this is important because, as I said, the battles for Belogorovka was taking place for a significant period of time, let's say this way. Also, of course, one of the main directions of the activities on the line of contact is Chiso on the northern flank of Donetsk sector. And yesterday afternoon, late evening, several sources in the Russian segment of internet start reporting about additional Russian offensive operations inside the Canal district of the Chiso which is separated from the main part of the Chiso by this irrigation channel, as you can see here on the map. Although, by the way, no big channels reported about it, and therefore I guess yesterday some channels were reporting about reckoning force operation that Russian militaries most likely conducted on the outskirts of this Canal district. At this point, it is too early, I believe, to say that Russian forces are already establishing control over there some blocks inside the district. At this point, I believe Russian forces still are concentrated on encircling this Canal district. All the main supply and support lines are under Russian direct fire control, and therefore it does make sense to wait for a week or two, and once the situation for Kyiv regime will become significantly more difficult due to lack of reinforcement and supply of munition or whatever they need, at that point most likely Russian forces will conduct decisive actions to establish control over this Canal district. And several sources are reporting about Russian operations towards Kalinina settlement. This is important area, for Russian offensive, because this settlement is located on high ground, and by establishing control over the Kalinina, of course, Russian forces will be in a better position to continue offensive operations towards the main part of the Chiso in weeks to come. Also, Avdiivka direction. No reports about some crucial changes in Avdiivka direction. Yesterday, several sources reported about Russian progress, Russian local-scale offensive operations in the direction of Kalinova. Although without photo or video confirmations, it is difficult to say if Russian forces managed to get closer to Kalinova, or maybe even entered the settlement. Most likely it was some reckoning force operation. It is some sort of operational pause in Avdiivka direction for the last several days. Kyiv regime tried to use this operational pause on part of Russian forces and conducted some local-scale counteroffensives, but without achieving much really on the line of contact. Russian forces were ready for such development. And also, by the way, when it comes to Krasnogorovka, also no significant changes on the southern flank of Donetsk sector. Settlement is still disputed between the sides. And when it comes to South Donetsk sector of the front line, main area of activity is, of course, Vremyevsky salient. And as I said several times in previous updates, I think it is highly likely that before end of next week, Urozhaina and Staromayorsk settlements will become under full Russian control. And we have quite good indicator to think so, because to expect some decisive actions from Russian side towards these two settlements, because of the high intensity of artillery strikes towards Kyiv regime forces in this area, also air strikes and the missile strikes. And this is it when it comes to short summary of the situation on Ukrainian battlefield, I will continue with some additional news. And RIA Novosti's report that Russian armed forces neutralize number of missiles that were launched by Kiev regime towards Sevastopol in Crimea. At this early hour of the morning, no precise information how many missiles have been launched by Kiev regime towards Sevastopol or Crimea in general, how many of them was destroyed, but we have for this moment statement from governor of the Sevastopol, Mikhail Razvozhaev, who confirmed information that Ukrainian missiles were neutralized by Russian air defense systems, and he also warned public that due to destruction of the Ukrainian missiles that had cluster warheads, some unexploded these mines from this cluster warhead was spread in the areas of interception of these missiles, and whenever people see any such object, they should not try to neutralize that object on their own. They should call emergency services immediately, because it is extremely dangerous to try to handle that situation alone, not being professional in sapper. So yes, yet another attempt of Kiev regime to conduct strikes towards Crimea. Also, by the way, we have a Lentarus report that Russian air defense systems intercepted at least 10 Ukrainian drones over the Krasnodar region. No reports about casualties on the ground or significant damage, and this yet another wave of missile and drone strikes on Russian territory began basically not nighttime or early hours of the morning, but yesterday late evening, when Russian Defense Ministry reported that Ukrainian Tochka U tactical missile was intercepted by air defense systems over the Belgorod. So more desperate Kiev regime is due to situation on the line of contact. As we can see, more and more drones and missiles Zelensky's regime is launching towards Russian territory, to basically harm as many civilians as they possibly can, because from strategical or even tactical point of view, these massive launches of the missiles towards Russia don't really make any difference on the line of contact. And any military expert will confirm this. Vzгляд newspaper is reporting that, yes, as I already mentioned in the beginning of the update, Russian armed forces liberated settlement of Starit on the western part of Volchansk. So this is, by the way, Volchansk, of course, and this is Starit. At this point, this settlement has, of course, strategical meaning, because by establishing control over this settlement, as I already said, the Russian forces cut main supply and support line for Kiev regime forces in Volchansk. Let's continue. And RT is reporting that President of US Biden currently is not scheduled to attend Zelensky's so-called Zelensky's peace conference that scheduled to take place in June, 15th-16th of June in Switzerland. So Swiss hosted a conference on the Ukrainian conflict set for the next month is not on US President Joe Biden's event schedule, White House National Security Council spokesman John Kirby has told reporters. And then, quote, "I don't have anything on this schedule to speak to in that regard," Kirby said during the press briefing on Friday when asked whether Biden plans to attend the event, which is expected to revolve around Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky's proposed roadmap for ending the conflict with Russia. So, yes, yesterday I mentioned that according to some reports, even Biden is not planning to attend this so-called peace conference in Switzerland, which will focus mainly on this so-called Zelensky's formula, peace formula. And what you expect, and if so-called main ally of the Kyiv regime is not planning to attend this conference, then what you expect from other leaders that have been invited? And by the way, Switzerland sent invitations to 160 countries, to leadership of 160 countries. Of course, Washington will send some delegations, undoubtedly, but most likely some second or third tier politicians or diplomats. TASS news agency is reporting that according to Bild, the German media outlet, German defense ministry is asking government now for additional 3.8 billion euros to continue supporting Kyiv regime in military terms, and by the way, this is on top of 7.1 billion which already have been allocated by Germany to support this Zelensky and his associates. So Germany is on a spending spree. I mean, they are spending like Germany's leadership, let's say. They are spending on prolongation of this conflict quite substantial amount of money. And according to this information, by the way, next year Germany may spend on Kyiv regime if conflict will not end in 2024 about 15 billion euros. It is what it is, man. What you're gonna do instead of pushing narrative for end of hostility and peace talks and stuff, these major NATO member states are doing whatever they can. Leadership of those states are doing whatever they can to further prolong this conflict, which is unfortunate, of course. Also, Lentaru is reporting, by the way, that some interesting story has happened in Berlin on 9th of May. One of the citizens of Ukraine, according to reports that I see, this person was a citizen of Ukraine, used a drone, attached Russian flag to the drone, and then launched this drone over the Reichstag on 9th of May, and videos with this drone with the Russian flag over the Reichstag was circulating on internet, and well, police was called in, and they arrested this person. He will be fined, and well, I would not be surprised at all if German authorities will deport him into Ukraine to get to get forcefully mobilized and then sacrificed somewhere in the front line. But well, it is interesting, isn't it, that Ukrainian citizen of Ukraine did this. So that's one more additional indicator of the that significant part of society, Ukrainian society, that went to the West, by the way. Maybe because they did not have the opportunity to come to Russia, that went to the West see themselves as Russians, by the way, and part of Russian world. And this citizen of Ukraine is no exception. That flew Russian flag over the Reichstag, which is a parliament of Germany, of course. RBK news agency is reporting that, well, Ukrainian truckers are not happy with the new mobilization law that went in force in Ukraine yesterday on 18th of May, and they blocked basically Odessa-Kiev highway in protest. I guess Kyiv regime will deal with these truckers by basically forcefully mobilize significant number of them, and that's how they're gonna deal with any protests that may take place in Ukraine, most likely. And yesterday, many of you probably noticed that post that I shared on my Telegram channel with several videos from the streets of the different cities in Ukraine, And you should see, by the way, those videos. Streets are almost empty. Streets are almost empty. People are trying to stay at home, don't to go outside, basically not to be kidnapped by representatives of Kiev regimes and then forcefully mobilized. Streets were empty, and these videos were made not in the like 7 o'clock in the morning or 6 o'clock in the morning. No, 10 o'clock in the morning, 1 o'clock in the middle of the day. And then still there is not that many people outside. That's a reaction of the society in Ukraine on this new mobilization law that was adopted by Kiev regime. I don't know how long this will last, but people in Ukraine definitely are under extreme pressure from the regime and are scared. People are just scared, by the way. They don't want to be, forcefully mobilized and then sent to the front line to be sacrificed for Zelensky and his criminal associates or geopolitical agenda of the Western ruling class. Quite understandably so. RT is reporting that, I mean, if those people have an opportunity, they should flee Ukraine. But at this point, it is extremely difficult to do because, borders are kept tight as much as possible to prevent this escape of the significant number of the military age males from the Kiev-controlled territory. Anyways, let's continue. RT is reporting that, Lavrov, by the way, foreign minister of Russian Federation, made quite strong statements yesterday about relationships between Russia and Western Europe. And, headline of this news is that Russia is done with Western Europe for at least a generation, which is unfortunate true. At least generation. Probably will take before relationships between the sides will start to improve if there is will for this. So Russia won't view Western European countries as partners again for at least one generation. Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov has predicted. The diplomat remarked that Moscow and the West are already locked in a confrontation, locked in the confrontation that has no end in sight. Top Russian officials, including President Vladimir Putin, have repeatedly described Moscow's ongoing military conflict with Kiev as a proxy war waged by NATO against Russia, which is true, which is factual. Evidence of this, the Kremlin says, is their material aid, their training, and their intelligence that the US and there are many European countries have been providing to defend Ukraine. Not Ukraine, but Kiev regime, and their influence on that territory that is still controlled by Kiev, because they don't give a damn about Ukraine or citizens of Ukraine, obviously. Speaking on Saturday, Lavrov cited an article by Russian political scientist Dmitry Trenin, who was written that Europe as a partner is not relevant for us for at least one generation. The minister said that he can't help but agree, and that Moscow is feeling this in principle almost daily. The senior Russian diplomat also claimed, without elaborating, that many facts speak in favor of such prognosis. The acute phase of the military political confrontation with the West continues and is in full swing, Lavrov said, pointing to the nature of the narratives currently prevalent in the US and Europe. So yes, I mean, it is unfortunate, by the way, it is unfortunate, obviously. Since the collapse of Soviet Union, Moscow clearly tried and made significant number of steps to establish good working, friendly relationships with the Western states. It was so obvious, and these policies was angering many citizens here in Russia that were warning basically that Western countries cannot be trusted, Western elites cannot be trusted. But, you know, Moscow tried its best to establish good working relationship with the collective West, but it did not work out. Western ruling class was unable to treat Russia as equal, with respect, and eventually, well, we are where we are. Now, eventually, Western ruling class provoked and, you know, this proxy war against Russia, started this proxy war against Russia by sacrificing Ukraine. And the interests of the citizens of the Western states itself. Also, by the way, RBK news agency is reporting that former commander of the NATO in Europe stated that the US is facing much more serious dangers than Russia, China or Iran, and this individual, let me give you his name, James Stavridis, former commander of the combined NATO forces in Europe, stated that main danger for US is divide in the US society. Not necessarily China, Russia or Iran, but this internal confrontation that is happening inside the US society, when social fabric is disturbed and not in the best shape, let's say. And he clearly has a point in this particular case, because I also think that main danger for US is ruling elites, ruling class, and the divide of the society because of the policies of this ruling class. It's quite simple, really. I mean, I don't think many people will argue with this. After all, some even public figures, by the way, in US quite often are, you know, speculating that situation is such abnormal in the US when it comes to social fabric, when it comes to society, that I mean, some would not exclude that at some point United States may end up even on the edge of civil war. So that must mean something, isn't it? And indicate that situation is not really good in the country. RT is reporting that Slovak Prime Minister's condition remains very serious. Slovak Prime Minister Robert Fico remains in a serious condition after surviving an assassination attempt. His deputy Robert Kalinak said on Saturday. Of course, so every day there is updates about health of the Fico. And Kalinak, who also serves as a defense minister, spoke to the news channel TAZ or TA3 outside the Roosevelt Hospital in Banska Bystrica, where Fico is being treated. He remained cautiously optimistic about the Prime Minister's recovery. He is in a stable condition, but four gunshot wounds have caused extensive injuries. Kalinak said. He added that the Fico had undergone additional surgery and that there still could be complications. In any case, his condition is very serious, understandably so. 4 gun wounds, of course, always gonna be serious. Let's hope Fico's recovery will be fast, and in several months' time, if it's possible, he will go back to his duties as a Prime Minister of Slovakia. RT is reporting. Let me check how long is this update, by the way. It's 29 minutes, so few more news, by the way, and I will end first part of the update and rest of the news in the second part on my Patreon page. So RBK News Agency is reporting that according to New York Times articles, US plans to launch into the orbit military-grade satellites, military-grade systems that will be capable to deal destruction to their other satellites. So basically, one may say that this Star Wars 2 have been revoked, or this idea of Star Wars 2s have been generated in US and pushed once again. Okay, US may send its military satellites into space, and well, Russia will do the same, China will do the same, India will do the same, and eventually, unfortunately, space around our planet will become as hostile environment as possible from military standpoint. Otherwise, of course, space is hostile always, and yes, this is unfortunate. That's why, by the way, that's why Russia was calling US. If you remember, some time ago, Russia vetoed US proposal to ban deliveries of nuclear weapon systems into deployment of nuclear weapon systems into space. And Russia vetoed this initiative proposal of the US. And of course, Western media did not pay attention to the details. They just reported that Russia vetoed this proposal of the US. While in reality, what happened is that Russia was proposing to make some changes in this US initiative and ban militarization of the space in general, so that no weapon systems, conventional or non-conventional, will be deployed into space. That's what was Russian proposal, and US disagree on that. And now we know why. Because Pentagon has plans to send armed grade, military grade satellites that will be capable to take out satellites of their other countries. That's why Washington had plans to militarize space, and you know, before these plans was revealed, they start pushing this narrative that, well, Russia is planning to put some nukes in the space and that kind of crap. But this nonsense, by the way, this cheap and really unclever propaganda of the West is no longer working, at least outside of the Western world. Because whenever Washington says something, everybody is skeptical and everybody is starting looking for what is behind that statement. Because nothing that Washington says, official Washington, can be taken on face value. That's a level of degradation of the reputation of the Biden White House and the ruling class of the US or the West in general. Anyways, let's continue. RIA Novosti is reporting that member of this emergency cabinet of the ministers in Israel and former prime minister, I believe, for a short time, Benny Gans was a prime minister, isn't it? So he made quite a warning towards Netanyahu. Let me translate this information to be more precise, because it is important. So Israeli minister and a member of the narrow war cabinet, Benny Gantz, said on Saturday that he would leave Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's emergency government if the war cabinet does not approve a plan of action for the war in Gaza Strip by June 8. We are now at the fatal crossroads when the country's leadership must see the big picture, identify risks and opportunities, and formulate a renewed national strategy. In order for us to fight shoulder to shoulder, the war cabinet must formulate and approve by June 8 an action plan that will lead to the implementation of the 6 strategic goals of the national importance, Gantz said at the specifically convened press conference. And let me translate this part also, just to be precise in translation. So, among the goals of the national importance, Gans identified the return of all Israeli hostages, the overthrow of the Hamas government, the demilitarization of the Gaza Strip, and the establishment of Israeli security control in the Palestinian enclave, as well as the creation of the civil administration there with the participation of the United States, Europe, Arab countries, and the Palestinians. Gans also called for residents of northern Israel to return to their homes by September 1st. About 80,000 Israelis were evacuated from the north of the country 6 months ago due to daily shelling by the Lebanese Hezbollah movement. And of course, Lebanese Hezbollah is shelling northern parts of Israel not because they want to, or they are happy with this, happy or on trigger, but because Israel is shelling Hezbollah's positions, or Israel is shelling southern Lebanon, and therefore Hezbollah is shelling northern Israel. This tit for tat is continuing for many months now, and at this point it is impossible to, it is not even sensical to get into argument which started first. It will be good if both sides will just stop shelling each other's territories, and will try to de-escalate. That's also, by the way, how long is this update? 37 minutes. So, dear friends, if I may, I will end this update on that. Just one more news, that fire erupted on a tanker not far away from coast of Yemen, after this tanker with oil came under fire from Yemen, most likely from Ansar Allah movement, or Houthi rebels, as they also are known worldwide. So yes, crisis in Red Sea didn't go anywhere. Crisis continues in Red Sea, in the Gulf of Aden. And yesterday at some point, several sources reported that another tanker was also hit in the not far away from coast of Yemen. So yes, situation is continues to be difficult there. Also, of course, this Red Sea crisis continues, and I will end this update, if I may, on this news. Hopefully, you will find it informative and interesting. And if so, please click that like button, leave some commentary just about anything, any topic. This is the only way we have to deal with the algorithm, likes and the comments. And for very same reason, if you can, please share links to my videos or my channels with your friends on any of their platforms that you are actively using. I know, by the way, that on Facebook my channel is blacklisted. You cannot share link to Facebook, at least videos. Maybe you can share link to the channel itself. Before I go, to record second part for Patreon, well, I will say that if you find this channel interesting, and if you think this channel deserves to exist in this field of news and political commentary, please consider to subscribe to my Patreon page, on which I will have extra content on regular basis, like second parts of the news updates and many others. And also you can support my work and this channel with small donations through PayPal or Boosty. All the links under this video in the description box and in the pinned comment. This is it for now. Have a great day and take care.